Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of What If Civilization Started Over. Now, last time we saw the kind of discovery of a large path, a shorter path between Northern Europe and Asia. We saw Rome beginning to do some things. We saw the Pink Country breaking apart, and we saw kind of just a lot happening in a short span of time. So now we're going to go back to that original topic of this path between Asia and Europe. Over by this lake that was discovered by the kind of the purple Chinese, we see a new nation forming from groups of travelers from both countries that found each other. We also see kind of out in this wilderness area, we see a new country forming out of tradesmen and people wanting to kind of establish connections between Asia and Northern Europe. In fact, pretty quickly, we see some trade routes out of the capital of the Green Country beginning to be established up until the border. Same with over here, we see them kind of establishing some trade groups as well as going the other way, kind of spanning their whole country, planning for something much bigger. However, on the other side of things, we're seeing kind of a big conflict. Instead of the world coming together in this region, we're seeing it pull further apart as we see Rome finally deciding they're going to make their advance into this city, sieging it and taking it over with little to no resistance from the Lime team. Now, obviously, as we saw last time, the Lime team had kind of formed a group with a few other nations, and so now they are going to call those nations to help against the Red Rome. Immediately in the south, we see Rome making advances into this former uh, Carthaginian territory, this part of Iberia. They begin to kind of encircle the capital almost. And Rome also begins to move in on this newly formed Bosnian country as they actually begin to take a lot and start pushing in quickly on the capital. However, their luck in the north isn't as successful as the lime green team is able to kind of push in on Rome's territory. Carthage is able to make a few successful landings in Sardinia and Sicily. However, Roman forces are there to meet the offensive equally and halt it. Now, over in Iberia, we see Rome. They're going to go ahead and recruit this yellow Iberia, promising them tons of land and territory if the war is won. And with this, they are able to successfully encircle the green Iberian lands as they conquest and take it all in the south, and they actually take over these islands as well. However, some countries are not liking of Rome. In fact, most countries in the world aren't. And we see, at least through supplies, we see the orange country kind of assisting in this war, but we see the blue Bosnian country joining against Rome. We see the Albanian country joining in against Rome. And then finally, we see this green German country joining in against Rome. And we also see this Iberian country join in against Rome. And now, over in Iberia, with forces distracted, the Dark Iberian country is able to substantially push into the former Purple country's territory. They reclaim the capital city and they begin to push into Roman occupations. Up north, with the help of their former or their I don't know how to describe it, but the country they broke away from, this Bosnian country is able to recapture all of their lands, and even with the help of Bosnia begin to push into the Croatian territories and Slovenia. Down in the south, with the Roman forces being thinned out even further, the island hopping campaign of Carthage continues as they fully conquest Sicily and begin entering the mainland Italian territories. Furthermore, we see Carthage beginning to land on the Iberian islands, beginning to conquest those, landing on southern Iberia, starting to take those territories, pushing into the yellow Iberian country rapidly. Up in the north of Iberia, the dark Iberian country begins to push rapidly on the capital of the yellow Iberian country as they continue to take lands away from Rome, beginning to liberate the green Iberian country. As speaking of the green Iberian country, they are able to push their Iberian occupiers out of their land as Carthage gives their land over, just kind of, you know. Up in the north, we see a major move by lime green France to basically fully encircle a major Roman army. I had to change the color, those were too similar. But Rome, these armies are forced to surrender as France now begins to make rapid advances towards mainland, the heart of Rome. Up in the north, we see the green German country beginning to make some moves into Rome. However, the Alps, they kind of halt too much work from being done. The Albanians hop across the Adriatic and they land on mainland Italy as well. However, the Albanians are forcefully stopped. Thankfully, Carthage is able to continue their mission up the mainland coast of Rome. Now, at this point, Rome is looking desperate. Their borders went from once a grand, expansive empire spanning through all of this to now a tiny nation limited to basically modern day Italy. And they end up going ahead and suing for peace, dragging Yellow Iberia down with them. Taking a look at the map, after the war, we see the yellow Iberian country is completely erased off the map, split up between the two other Iberian countries bordering it. The purple Iberian country is brought back, and they gain some territory, gaining one of the major cities, part of Rome. We see a new blue country forming up in the north off of this city. We see the purple Bosnian country growing, gaining this city as blue Bosnia grows up the coast. We see Albania taking over this territory with that state in it, and we see Carthage taking over that state, Sicily and southern Italy and southern Rome. Now, however, with all of this, this comes kind of the end of the Triangle Alliance. The Triangle Alliance only existed to prevent uh, chaos from Rome, but now that that's over, a lot of people, like Albania, they got land like they wanted. They don't want to be here. The blue Bosnia, they don't want to be here. Green Germans, they don't want to be here. And so that kind of just leaves these guys. They do end up adding one person. The purple Iberian country would end up joining the alliance. Just because this alliance has helped them. The only reason they exist is because this alliance helped defeat Rome in their name. So, the purple country joins this alliance, and now the Triangle Alliance kind of still exists, but definitely not to the extent it did. It's kind of just a non-aggression pact at this point. Now, Asia hasn't seen much expansion in a while due to just the fact that they've been more busy with internal conflicts that they can't expand. But now the yellow country decides that they're going to brave the journey down the coast of Vietnam. They're going to actually expand pretty large. They get to this area, they go up, and they reach where you go down to get to Malaysia before kind of calling it quits on growing, with kind of harsh jungles preventing them from going this way. Over here we see a new dark blue country forming in this area. They actually form as a pretty large nation, claiming all of this to be theirs. They go up to here And they claim this as theirs just because the kind of tribal people in the area share similar cultures to them. They don't really have any logical reason for claiming all of this as theirs. They just needed a reason to get put up on the map. That country is going to go ahead and place their capital right there, kind of on their largest settlement of maybe 10,000 people. Now we move south to the Siam country. They have remained one of the largest, one of the most powerful, and one of the most neutral, and they want to keep that status, and people in Africa realize this, and they start taking advantage. We see some people up in Eritrea beginning to break away, deciding, you guys want to be neutral, we're gonna just kind of be our own thing. We don't not like you, but we have our own ideals that aren't being fulfilled. As we see three kind of major cultures breaking away in this, we see the kind of Cape of Africa, the Somalia area, we see we see North Djibouti, kind of that area, and then we see kind of a larger Ethiopia splitting away. Now, for any of you Cyan fans out there, I just want to reassure you, this does not mean Cyan falls out of the top 10. In fact, they probably get stronger from this, being able to centralize their military, their population more, but we're going to get into the logistics of that later. But Cyan is still a top power in the world alongside with their brother, the Pink Country. Okay, real quick, I just want to say I accidentally cut the recording, so I had to kind of mix two clips together. So I'm sorry if anything sounds weird in this one, but we're gonna just quickly get back where we were. So we're gonna start with continue with Latvia. Now, this country, when taking a look at the trade map, they only have really two major cities that kind of influence their country, and both of them are connected to the trade routes. But the thing is, what about all of this? All of these people are forced to go to one of the two cities, and they don't like that. So what's going to happen is we're going to see this entire part of the country break away. They want to be able to establish their own relations, their own trade, and most importantly, not be taxed by the Latvian government. So now the Latvian country, they're unhappy about this. They lost a decent amount of their population, and they lost land that they could have used for agriculture or whatever. And so they begin to push in on this country, wanting to reoccupy some of this land. However, this is immediately stopped. See, now Finland has been isolationist most of their life. Like, they hadn't even met the Swedes until fairly recently. And so they've been able to kind of just build up their own army. And so when they come up to Latvia and say, stop this, because they like what this new country is doing, they have their own beliefs and they are going to stick up for them. And so Latvia kind of laughs in their face and immediately begins to make a push trying to cut off these guys. However, instead of being met with little to no resistance, the Finnish forces immediately get them out. Within minutes of them entering the land, they are kicked out, and Finland begins rapidly expanding southward into Latvian lands. Now, with the support of Finland, the rebellion group is able to conquer any border with the Orange country, the only country who might have helped Latvia, as they begin immediately making moves back in towards Latvian home territory. And suddenly, just as quickly as it seemed that Latvia grew to be a threatening or influential power in the Baltic area in Northern Europe, they're forced to surrender to Finland and a group of farmers and, yeah, basically farmers. Now, Finland, they occupy every land that they took in the west or in the east, but they let Latvia keep their area right here, deciding that that's just too ethnically different from Finland and it would be too hard to try and maintain that piece of land. The rebellion group gains a bit of land, but in the end, Latvia severely loses from this conflict and is forced to submit to Finland and the rebellion. Now, in the background of everything, while conflict and tension has been raging in Europe, Asia and I guess Belarus, which is, still Europe, but it's a different thing, they have just decided to be peaceful together as now the trade route between them grows closer and closer, bigger, larger and larger, connecting up here, finally over here, connecting up right here, as we see this country is connected up via a separate thing. Korea loves this idea. They decide to tag along, connecting their capital, that city, in China, up to the border. Remember, China doesn't have the best relations with these other two, so they're not going to rush to go give them some trade. But now, the final link. The decision needs to be made. How do you want to connect this up? Do you want to connect it up to the main network up here? Do you want to connect it up to this city? Do you want to connect it here? Do you want to create something new that goes down this way? So many options. So the Belarus, they decide that this not a good option. They ignore that. They immediately continue the expansion this way and skip over the purple country through the brown. They go down, they get to Bulgaria, to Macedonia. They get into the Greek countries before stopping, as this trade route is connected up, and this one will have probably expanded by now, as suddenly there's trade between Southern Europe and soon to be Northern Europe, but also through to Asia. Now, the thing with trade is you're able to tax it. China and the green country, they both agree we're not going to tax in our own countries. Anyone along the way, they can do what they do. We're not going to enforce whether taxing this trade route will be allowed or not. And rich businessmen here tax money, no limits. Now, immediately, coincidentally, once this news breaks that no limitations on taxes happens, a lot of wealthy guys decide, hey, running a country, that sounds fun. And look at all this land out here. Very coincidentally. Now, it must be even more of a coincidence, I guess, that they all basically conveniently converged directly on this new trade route, put their major city as close to it as possible. Nah, that's just coincidental. We don't gotta worry about that. There's nothing that's gonna come from this at all in the future. Nothing at all. These are just new countries. Definitely. But now, on a serious note, now, unfortunately, that's about time, and that's about all there is in this one, but with tension building, we may see something big happen next time. Or the time after that, depending on how fast I get to it. Now, again, if you like this, go ahead, like, and subscribe, and if you have any ideas, put them in the comments. Again, I try and read them all. I will integrate any ideas if I can make it work. And I credit you if you give me an idea that I like. So, thanks for watching. I will see you in episode 7 of What If Civilization Started Over.